I do not watch these movies after the first time. There are movies that have moments in it that I cannot watch because I didn't get there. There is a moment that is painful for me where I just think, I'm not there. At the end of the 47th day of shooting, in the 14th hour of the day, you still have to capture an emotional bit of lightning in a bottle that is going to last forever, whether you do it well or not. There remains forever a terrifying moment of, am I going to be escorted off the set and off the lot because the authenticity police have dubbed me a crook?
The Rest is Entertainment is presented by Octopus Energy. Now, one of the stranger signs of status in show business is being very, very hard to reach.
Exactly. You get to a certain level in the business where you don't want anyone to talk to you at all. And there are some people who are notoriously difficult to get hold of. So Christopher Nolan, for example, is famously almost completely... It doesn't even have a mobile phone. I mean, you literally cannot get hold of Christopher Nolan. He said, of course he does. He's got a sneaky little mobile, has he?
Yeah.
He's on WhatsApp groups, but he doesn't want you to know that. Shall I tell you who's easy to get hold of?
Who?
Octopus Energy.
Yes.
So Octopus Energy, if you know the score when one of your service providers writes to you, you've got a question for them or you're disputing something, you reply and it immediately says you cannot reply to this email. With Octopus Energy, any email they send you, you can reply to, and it will go to your dedicated team, which to me feels like one of the greatest advancements I've heard of the last 30 or 40 years. You can actually reply to people.
Would it be possible to contact the people I'm paying my money to? Well, with Octopus Email, you can reply directly to your own dedicated small team.
I mean, that's amazing, right?
Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment Questions and Answers edition. I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. And are you nervous, Marina? Should we tell people where we are?
Yep. We are in Claridge's, and the person doing the answers to your questions is Mr. Tom Hanks.
He's due any moment. I keep looking through that door just in case he turned up. Well, if we stop in the middle, it's because Tom Hanks has just turned up. You will understand why.
We've got obviously lots of questions about Toy Story 5 and all Toy Stories that have gone before.
1, 2, 3 and 4.
Yeah, but we're going to get deeper into those huge unifying roles he's played across absolute decades of one of the best all-time careers in cinema.
We got stuff about Aston Villa. We got
his favourite tank.
I'm incredibly excited to talk to him, and thank you for arming us with such amazing questions as well. I hear a noise in the corridor, so Mr. Tom Hanks is on his way. Please let us compose ourselves and enjoy this episode. Tom,
welcome. You have been playing Woody for over 30 years. And our first question comes from Steph Allen, and she says, when you first joined the cast of Toy Story, did you have any inkling of how successful Pixar and specifically the Toy Story franchise would end up being?
They were explaining it to us as though it was a volatile mixture that could blow everybody's fingers off if we didn't do it right. It was this new technology of animation that wasn't hand-drawn on cells by artists, that it was going to be this, well, we can show you sort of what it looks like, and it should all come together. They kept saying should, we hope, maybe. But as the guy, look, my job is to inhabit something that is not myself. The only thing that I saw was about 12 seconds of a line from a movie called Turner and Hooch in which I'm screaming at a dog. It was a thing where I was like, don't eat the car, don't eat the car. And they animated Woody, as you know Woody right now. Yeah. It was just him against a blue background. And they say, see what we can do with the thing. And it was all this elbows and fists and outrage and what have you. And I said, wow, you want me? Sure. And then for the next 2 hours, they kept explaining to me what the process was and what the story was going to be. And I said, guys, I'm good. Yeah, I'm in. Yeah. Tell me where to show up.
I'm going to do some acting.
That's it. The thing that then was actually a great part of the process was, and this, I got to give this up to the powers that be. Certainly John Lasseter at the time, that he was the head of Pixar, and all of the whole Pixar team, this phalanx of folks that never stopped testing material. We did about 80% of a movie that they threw out.
Wow.
They put it together and they said, there is something intrinsically wrong with the DNA that we started off with. And I guess they made a painful call to us all saying, everything you've done, we're going to start all over from scratch was. And I said, okay. All right, fine. And then out it came, a whole different relationship between Woody and Buzz and our original characters as well. And I had to say, I had to give that up to that's a pretty bold throw in order to make on something that they just wanted to get right. And by the time you get to see the finished thing, I'm just saying, I can't believe that I'm in something that is as fascinating as this.
Is it quite a rare throw in Hollywood to throw things out like that in your experience?
80% of a movie? Yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah. I can understand. You know, those first 3 days of shooting, we're going to reshoot that.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some filmmakers that build in 2 weeks of reshoots into the actual budget. But, you know, the finances are so absolutely insane, as well as, I guess, in some ways, the egos that would be involved that make Pixar different. There are other times, once you get the template down, you've got it, and it's all going to work, and they're going to put it all together. The fact that they all go back, and I guess in some sort of like hothouse boiler room atmosphere, they just test it and test it and test it and amongst themselves, not a a screening thing. They just, are we doing this right? And they all draw, and they all put up these animatics and their storyboards that are magnificent. But that they were willing to say, this isn't what we originally intended to be. That's a deep throw as far as I'm concerned. And God bless them. And I'm going to assume now that testing process is now built into all of the other ones, which is why it takes so damn long to shoot these things and get them done. It's like it's 2.5 years, of my involvement in it about every 6 months.
I have a question from Charlotte, who says, this will not be unfamiliar to you. When I watched Toy Story 3, in that now infamous scene with the enormous incinerator, I sobbed with my child and promised her that I'd never throw away her toys. 17 years later, I still have every single one. What do you struggle to let go of? Asks Charlotte.
Oh, my Lord.
She got philosophical at the end there, didn't she?
Just a little bit. I'm trying to get into this combination. You know the book by Marie Kondo? Yeah. Clearing out your closet. I try to give up anything that does not produce joy in my hand.
Yeah. You started with the stuff that produces joy. Yeah. This isn't working.
I keep the joy thing as best I can, but then you combine that with the diabolical sounding Swedish death cleaning, which is not, let's talk about that, shall we? And some combination between there, I will literally force myself to give up the sweatshirt that I wore the day I moved my third son into college that I bought at the bookstore that day. That I must say I still have those. So you can't get rid of some of that stuff. And it's not because it looks good or it doesn't have holes in it. It's because, no, you don't understand. I spent a very important day wearing this, back in 19, whatever it was.
Well, that's the interesting part of Charlotte's question, I think, because you have, through this character and through this incredible franchise, been part of so many childhoods. And of course, parents is a huge part of those childhoods. You must get a sense of how much these films mean to people.
More so, I think, than anything else.
Anything else you've done?
Well, it's because of the volume. Yeah. And it's because there are now, I was talking with Tim, it's like, it's a shame that there's a number that is attached to any of these movies. They should just call it, here's the next Toy Story movie, or, another Toy Story, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever it goes. But there is a contract that you always have with the audience anyway, right? And they never forget the first time they saw the movie, whatever it comes down to. But they see it in a different way when they are 6 or 16. But now we are into 56-year-old people that are talking about the first time they saw Woody and Buzz together and how much it meant them and how they go back to it again and again and again and again. And it produces these same feelings along with reflection of all the wisdom that they have since acquired, because they now have kids that were their age when they saw it the first time. I don't discount the power of cinema, because I have that my own reference in my head for individuals that I'm might meet because they were in a movie that I saw when I was 18 years old.
Can you think of specific examples of people you've met?
Well, like I have met Keir Delay, who was in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I become a babbling fool.
That's amazing.
And I tell him I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey 119 times, and I've always seen something different. Can I ask you, please, a question about when you were running upside down? That kind of stuff. And it's very wonderful. And that, when I am in an elevator with someone who has a 6-year-old child in tow, and they are trying to explain that this guy who got on the 4th floor is Woody, and you can't, and this just simply does not compute until I get the kid to close their eyes, and then I say, imagine, think of Woody now. Can you see him? All right. Well, oh my God, here we are in the elevator at the same time, and you see their face just kind of like explode in this recognition and joy. You don't discount that. Yeah. That is the production of high art and a very, very personal moment between you and a 6-year-old or a 56-year-old.
But it's part of maybe a shrinking mainstream culture. You've always been interested in those kind of big unifying roles that lots of Americans can buy into. Is it harder to find those roles in a much more fractured culture?
As you know, I always go back to, this has come up periodically as, some brand of new technology becomes the habit of how we experience these one-on-one things. Without a doubt, there is, I think, a greater power now to those fewer and fewer things that garner all of our attention more or less at the same time. Because of, I can entertain myself. Anybody can entertain themselves if they want to all day long in 3-minute increments, on whatever they tend to swipe through. So the power of that union of a individual experience that you actually share with 200 or 1,600 strangers at the same time in the same room, or maybe just talk about after you've all been able to see it, it will always be here. It will always be a part of the consciousness. But I go back to periods of time when most of culture was aware of a great opera or a great Shakespearean play, and it just becomes more diffused. And eventually there's just less and less of those, the grand unifying moments, GUMs. Let's call them that.
Gums.
The grand unifying moments of no matter what your age, no matter what culture is, even no matter what language that you speak, that binds everybody together in let's just call it art for the sake of what art can do.
We'll call it grand unifying moment pictures. We can call it GUMP for short, if that's helpful.
Oh my Lord. Write that down.
Yeah, there we
quick,
go.
staff. By the way, not a bad example of that too.
A really good example of it.
And when that happens, all you can do is bow your head in humble submission.
Funny enough, I got a question from Neil Anderson, which actually talks about your personal role in that sort of phenomenon. He says there's a graphic that's doing the rounds showing your 90s run, and it's frankly ridiculous. Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Apollo 13, Toy Story, Saving Private Ryan, The Green Mile, Castaway. At the time, were you aware you were in the middle of this once-in-a-generation golden run, or did you just feel like, I'm making the next film? Was there something magic?
No. I felt fortunate in that these things came along, and I was fascinated by the subject. That was it. And the alliances that went into all of those, because dare I say it, sometimes you think you're making the same movie and you are not. You are making some other film that somebody else that is not the same thing. But also, too, I think you can kind of look back on that. I always, from my age, I think the 70s were this great golden age, because you could have anti-heroes and, gritty stories that ended as tragedies, but everybody remembers them as great films. The 90s might have been the last great swing of that, even though the commerce of it certainly drove it. The money numbers drove everything. The beginning of sequels and franchises and what have you came about during those eras. But I just felt, the last movie I made in the 1900s going into 2000 was Castaway, And that was about as daring a swing in every way, creatively, financially, cinematically, that anybody could take. And we all felt that, hey, we're getting away with this.
Yeah.
And in some ways, all those movies that you mentioned, we were getting away with something that we thought, well, isn't this what the art form, can render to you if you so want to test yourself? That and the economics of making movies, I think, were matching at that place. And that match, I don't think exists in the same way.
But do you think you're part of that? Because one of the things about making difficult cinema is if you've got a big mainstream presence in the middle of it who you trust, you can get away with an awful lot more.
I think that trust is part of it. Alas, I think mystery might be the bigger thing. Like, what's he going to do in this? And I don't know if I have a lot of mystery versus countenance and all that. But I will say this about all of those. They were one-offs.
Yeah.
And I had high-powered executives say to me, no one wants to see a movie about Apollo 13 because we know how it ends. And I just thought, well, in that case, no one will ever see Star Wars or Casablanca or Citizen Kane ever again, because and so there was it was kind of like a zeitgeist that was constantly being tested. But outside of Toy Story, there are no sequels in there.
Yeah,
each one of those were individual one-off films that had no reason to go. I always made this joke, is that people say, "Oh, your films are always like, you just keep making the same hopeful, non-cynical films again and again." I said, yes. I said, yes, you are correct. I do try to take my button off the cynical default mode button. I try to do that. But there's also a version of my career in which I could be sitting here right now and saying, I'm going to tell you right now that Forrest Gump 12 is a much better movie than Forrest Gump 10 or 11 were. And that didn't happen because it couldn't sustain anything beyond what we did. And oddly enough, it's a shame that these Toy Story movies have numbers attached to them, because they just should call them the next Toy Story movie, because it warrants the investment of the audience with the filmmaker.
Yeah. So we're not going to get Apollo 14. That's what we're saying.
We would answer all the questions left unanswered by Apollo 13.
Tom, just please hold on a moment while we'll go to some adverts. This episode is brought to you by Lloyds. Now, I love it when characters are part of the club. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Richard?
The Thursday Murder Club in some ways reminds me of the A-Team.
I would now like to map each of those characters onto the A-Team and feel I probably could. I mean, Elizabeth is Hannibal and it's not even close.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Ron is Howling Mad Murdoch.
Well, there are definite perks to being in a club. Just ask the members of Club Lloyds. Because with Club Lloyds, you can bank on Lloyds to give you more wherever you are.
If you join Club Lloyds, there's all sorts of benefits you can choose between. There's, for example, 6 free cinema tickets.
They've got an annual coffee club and gourmet society membership, which would be mine.
And also something that the Thursday Murder Club would enjoy very, very much indeed.
Yes.
To top it all off, you have fee-free spending abroad, which means wherever you are, you won't be charged by Lloyds to use your debit card when you're travelling. Now, joining this club costs £5 per month, but that is refunded in any month that you pay £2,000 into your account.
Now, that is a club that's worth being part of. Check out Club Lloyds today. You'll need to be a UK resident and aged 18 or over to apply. Welcome back, everybody. Now, we are talking to Mr. Tom Hanks. This is from Patrick Farrell, who says, you've been the face of so many defining moments in cinematic history, as you've just been telling us.
Peaked in the 90s, I like to say. Peaked in the 90s.
At this point in your career, when you walk onto a film set on day one, what's the one thing that still genuinely surprises or challenges you?
Just complete, total terror of losing the battle against self-loathing that has to start when you get up in the morning. The test really is of the grand ensemble of the crew, the people who are making the movie every day. It's hard work, it can grind you down, because if at the end of the 47th day of shooting, in the 14th hour of the day, you still have to capture an emotional bit of lightning in a bottle, that is going to last forever, whether you do it well or not, whether you land on that level of authenticity that makes it real, or if you're just trying to, where do you want me to look? What laser point am I supposed to look at? If you don't traverse that barrier, you're a failure. You're no good at your job. And it's not just for me. It's also for everybody whose job is relying on the fact that, yes, my costume does reflect the theme of what we're doing. Yes, my hair. Yes, the guy on the other side of the camera whose line he is delivering, when we get his side of that, he is going to have to get to, or she are going to have to that same place. So there remains forever a terrifying moment of, am I going to be escorted off the set and off the lot because the authenticity police have dubbed me a crook, because you don't do it anymore. So that's the great thing, that we all share that. But I just made this movie in Australia, and it's the second Greyhound movie. It's about World War II, and I'm a commander of a destroyer being attacked, and it's one damn thing after another, and it's hell on the high sea, and it's as serious as World War II itself was. All right, and so we're there, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing the barking these incredibly complex orders that I've had to study for weeks and understand what they actually mean and get the nomenclature down. And there was a fellow there playing a seaman. He's in a sailor suit, and he's grimy and he's burnt up because we've been under attack. And he's working on the movie for 2 weeks. And all those people have a very important job for those 2 weeks. They have to inhabit this very specific task again and again and again and again and again and again, whether I'm right or not, whether I blow the lines or not. And I'm doing, he's an Australian fellow, and we're doing it again and again and again. And he happened to be the guy that walked through every take, right? And we were finally done. We did this thing when, all right, we're moving on. We would ring a bell, ding, all right, we finally got that. We get to move on. And when I went ding and rang the bell, he said to me, every time I walk by, all I hear is Woody. It's sort of, all right, that's the agreement that we made in all of this. And hopefully the suspension of disbelief that actors and playwrights and directors and audiences have been utilizing since Aeschylus wrote plays, at Epidavros. Hopefully that'll kick in and the magic will work.
Question here from H. No other details about this person's name. You've played so many different roles in your career. Which of them do you think you would get on with best in real life? How do you think you would get on with Woody?
Oh, no, he'd drive me nuts. Yeah. No. We would be in a continuous competition of who's in charge. It would not. It would not be good.
And the voices are so similar.
And the voice, and he's taller than I am, and that
he stole your act.
I wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. I would literally say he is saying the stuff that's going through my head. How come he gets credit for doing this? I would be sulking, back in the toy box if I was, a toy myself.
It will not surprise you that a huge number of Aston Villa fans have.
How about that?
Well, that's what they'd like. Brenda would like to know your reaction. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. It's a very odd route that brought me, to Villa Park.
Yes.
And I have been to Villa Park a number of times. And there is nothing greater for an American to have an English Premiership team locked into their soul. And I have had discussions with Leeds fans, and I just feel sorry for them because they're not Aston Villa. But I will also say this: you become a fan of a team for the rest of your life, thinking that once I die, they will finally win. When I'm no longer with us, it will not happen in my lifetime, but I will carry the claret and the blue for as long as I can, and I will pass it on when the time comes, and then they will win the UEFA Cup.
What now?
So
because you don't do sequels.
I feel bad that someone who just has adopted Aston Villa as their team now is like, well, where do you go now? You're going to be disappointed.
Story,
I have been living with this grand hope since I did my first press junket in England in 1985, in which I fell in love with this team that I saw on a BBC football scoreboard. You know, here we are. Clapham took, Upton Swells 2-0. They have all these odd Queen's Park. The Rangers took on Crystal Palace. Where are these teams?
Yeah.
I have no idea. And then one came up and it was called Aston Villa. I said, that sounds like an island off of the Côte d'Azur. It's like, is that near Portofino, Aston Villa? And then so I said, my favorite team is Aston Villa because I know it's in Birmingham, but it sounds like it's in the middle of the Mediterranean. So that's how long I've been rooting for something. And all those years, it's this thing, just hoping we're going to avoid.
Because that was just after their last huge success, wasn't it? You joined just at the right time.
Yeah, we won Europe in 82. So here we are again. And here's the great thing. It happened in my lifetime. Yeah. I'm so thrilled.
Brenda's question, by the way, is saying, as you've won in Europe, will John McGinn's Scotland be your backup team for the World Cup?
Okay, sure. You bet. Alas, the World Cup for me is going to be Greece because that's where we always are during the World Cup. It's a summertime, more or less. But I will tell you, this odd thing happens in the World Cup where suddenly we have to be at the Dverna in time for the kickoff between Luxembourg and Croatia because suddenly those I don't want to some version of the ugly mutt team, or the dog with the cut off tail becomes the dog that you're rooting for in order to win.
I am watching Suriname, Angola.
Yeah, I have got to. Please, Suriname. Please. And this is the thing that I think one of the reasons why Americans have taken to what you call football and we call soccer is because we figured out the great drama in a 2-1 soccer match going into extra time. We know that our hearts will either be broken or swell with pride based on something that might happen if the ball is just in the right place at the right time.
Another super quick one. James Regan says, like Tom, I'm a lifelong obsessive of the Second World War. A simple question. What is his favorite tank?
Oh, wow. Oh, my Lord. I was amazed. And I asked this question of experts because the American Sherman tank looks like a toy compared to the Cromwells or the Panzers and whatnot. And I said, what was the deal with them? And this guy said, we just had a lot more of them. Volume. The Sherman tank was a volume business, not a huge bore, gun on it or something. We just had a lot of them. I said, oh, okay, all right, thank you very much. So I'm gonna say that rounded, kind of like odd typewriter looking kind of tank that a lot of people burned up in, whatever have it.
Another one from Deleuze. Who would win a table tennis match between Forrest and Marty Supreme? I think she thinks Forrest all day long.
Oh, all day long. Without a doubt. I mean, Forrest could play. Yeah. Forrest could play ping pong with both hands. He was ambidextrous, man. I think it would be close.
I think it would be watchable. Yeah, very watchable.
It'd be pay-per-view.
We'd make a fortune. Yeah. We'd make a bloody fortune. But I think I don't know how much affection Marty Supreme would develop. He didn't play for a national team, did he? He was just out.
No, he was out for himself, wasn't he, Marty Supreme?
Yeah. Come on, there's something altruistic there.
Megan Pollock has a question. Do you think any of the characters you have played have fundamentally changed you as a person?
I think they all have over the course of it because if you're lucky, you get involved about a year before you start playing it and you start carrying it around inside yourself. And the specific expertise of a lot of these characters are quite amazing. Like Richard Phillips in Captain Phillips.
I think the best film of the 21st century,
God bless.
In my opinion.
God bless. And that came about because Richard was willing to invest in me a dispassionate examination of his absolute being completely worn down to a granular puddle of a human being by this experience. And to realize that there was a guy out there who up to that point was essentially trying to keep track of all the union complaints on board his ship. That's one aspect of it. But I will tell you this, that you didn't have Mr. Rogers growing up. And it was a fascinating guy to get to know, and everybody I talked to had nothing but every single person said both the same thing about Fred as well as a unique thing that was just between the two of us. And I didn't consider myself to be a particularly spiritual man. I have a religion of heritage, and tradition and what have you. But he said something that I think was ridiculously profound that I have since adopted, and it only came about because I played Fred Rogers in a movie. Someone asked him about, he was an ordained minister, and his flock was a bunch of 2 and 3 year olds who were watching his television show. And someone asked him about prayer. And he said, "Oh, no. He said, I pray every day." And they said, "Really? Well, what is your prayer? How do you pray?" And he said, "Well, anybody can pray, and it only takes 3 words. Thank you, God." I heard that, and I said, "This is what has been missing in my life." That's the way I begin or end or take a moment of stock every day in order to say those 3 words, and it covers everything, as in thank God, thank you for this pain in the ass that I'm dealing with right now, or thank you for this moment of joy that I would not have had if I were not in the right place at the right time.
One from Ellie Jagger. I love this question. She says, "I'm a piano teacher, and sometimes my students can be so scared of making mistakes. I keep telling them we learn through our mistakes, but I wonder if there's any examples of mistakes you've made in your career that felt monumental at the time, but in hindsight were actually a good thing."
I will say yes. The thing that is oddly cruel is that people say, "Oh, what was the best movie you've made?" Or all that. And it all comes down to what was the most amazing experience that it can go over the course of those 8 months or 16 weeks or whatever it is. And even though the film is not known to be quote unquote a commercial hit or what have you, they are all such profound experiences of success and failure. You know what I mean? And I do not watch these movies after the first time, really, because they never change. And there are movies that have moments in it that I cannot watch because I didn't get there. And sometimes these are the big moments. I simply did not get there, and I know it. And I was confounded by any number of things.
Would you have an example of one of those that's worth sharing?
There is a okay, yeah, I'll tell you. There is a moment in that it was painful for me in Castaway, in which I am back, and Chuck is back in Kelly's house, and he gives her her watch back, and there's a moment where I just think, I'm not there. All it is a turnaround on me, but I do this gesture that I just think is false. And is me, and is not Chuck, and it is if the movie is on, I will get up and leave the room before that scene comes on.
Did you know it when it was happening, or did you only see it after?
No, I did not. No, it wasn't until I actually saw it when it went down, and I think that we were just moving on there, and I wasn't there.
Are you able at least to be able to give yourself credit when you see something where you did hit it?
The only time that happens is when I have no recollection of it whatsoever. The odd thing about movies, and this will go back to the TV series I was on television, they called Bosom Buddies, and me and a guy named Peter Scolari was in it. When I happened to land on a couple of minutes of an old episode of Bosom Buddies, I remember all of Peter's lines. I have no idea what I say next, but because I was watching him do it, we were so close and we were so tight. So the only time it happens was I don't remember doing that. But it's not a thing. Yeah. I can't linger on that. I don't sit there and say, "Oh, watch this movie, watch this moment that comes up. Yeah. We really nailed that." I look at it and all I can say is, I was cold. It looks like I'm warm. I was really freezing that day, something like that. Or that beard was sticky. I can say things like that.
Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
We had so many questions for you. And I just want to say from all of our listeners and from ourselves, the joy you've brought people. And I know it's hard for you to watch yourself on screen and see what it is you're doing, but you have brought people together, and the incredible body of work that you've done. You've been part of so many people's lives for so long, Toy Story, but also in the incredible movies you've done. And so it's always nice for us and our listeners just to be able to say thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thanks so much.
Aren't we lucky to have this cuckoo job of ours? We
don't notice any of your mistakes.
No matter what's going on, there is a moment in all these movies when everybody on the set, no matter what we all just kind of look at each other and say, Well, I would do this for free sandwiches and haircuts, wouldn't
Yeah.
you? And we all sort of would. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you
Tom.
so
Very kind
much.
of you.
Thank you.
So they've taken Tom off. That was fun.
It was. It's funny. He mentions movies, and you're like, "Oh yeah, you did that other iconic one." He's done. It's extraordinary. It's like a actual last movie star.
Well, when we did the question where we're going through Neil's question, where we go through that list of movies, but then you think you can go before that and after it, and still have like incredible lists of these movies. But
The end of the 1900s, as he called it.
I love that. But I love doing this format where the listeners ask the questions, because it's such a lovely way of doing it, because no one's trying to fool anybody. It's just it's a really, you just get very interesting things out of people.
Yeah, and people, especially with someone like that who is all about trying to bring people together.
Yeah,
asking just questions of the people who've watched the films is so much better than any form of a gotcha.
And he was a dude as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right at the end, you could see that the publicist has opened the door just to make sure that he knew he's on his way out, and he wanted to keep talking, which is so lovely. But I know
going back to Bosom Buddies on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Need to look at that on YouTube.
But yeah, I mean, a genius as an actor. I said that in the middle of that I think Captain Phillips is the best movie of the 21st century, which I think it is. But I know that people at home might have a different opinion on that.
Well, if you don't think I'm going straight home to find the little bit in Castaway where supposedly he makes a great mistake.
Yeah.
What an icon.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
That was a real treat, but thank you very much, listeners, because genuinely you sent so many questions. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to yours, but it makes such a difference, and it makes people sort of realize how loved they are as well. And we like talking to people who are loved and do things for the right reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and we will see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.